You're listening to Trek FM.
Welcome to From There to Here, Trek FM's 50th Anniversary Star Trek Rewatch. We're going through all 729 Star Trek adventures, from Enterprise to Star Trek Beyond, and everything in between. There it is. I'm Zach Moore, and I'm joined by, you heard him already,
Richard Marquez.
What's up, Richard?
Hey, how you doing? I'm good. How are you?
Great, man, great. So we're going to talk about an episode of Deep Space Nine today, and an episode of Voyager. We'll start off by talking about Deep Space Nine's Accession. Yeah, so for years I thought this episode was called Ascension. And I sat down over the weekend to watch it for this. I'm like, oh, it's Accession.
Well, now we know. At least you didn't go into the wrong episode, so we're good.
So what happens in this episode, Richard?
Okay, Accession. A 300-year-old Bajoran ship comes through the wormhole. Its passenger claims that he is the emissary of the prophets. Now, he's the emissary of the prophets of the past, not the present. So, yeah, it's a very interesting episode. I mean, it obviously when it comes through and they talk to the prophets and supposedly they must have misinterpreted the that's right. Sisko stepped down. That's right, and because they asked whether or not who would take over the role of the emissary of the prophets, and Sisko steps down, obviously relieved because he never wanted that position in the first place, and neither does Starfleet, so he can be a captain now. And he even mentions that he feels like he's on vacation.
Yeah. All I have to worry about is the Dominion, the Maquis, and the Klingons.
Which you would think that it'd be a walk in the park dealing with just being the prophet or the emissary to the prophets.
Right.
So,
well, if they hadn't already called 2 episodes of Star Trek Emissary, this would have been a great episode to title Emissary. But the title's been used by TNG and Deep Space Nine, so that was out.
Or Emissary Who with a question mark.
That I'm sure that was debated in the writers' room. I'm sure that was on their list, Richard. So yeah, I really like this episode. It kind of re-examines Sisko's role as the emissary. Something that's in these early seasons, it's kind of there, but they don't really do anything with it for a long time. And every now and then you kind of open up an orb and you have a vision or something like that. So yeah, this is the first time we see the prophets for a while when they go Sisko and the new emissary go into the wormhole, and he's like, hey, but I found you first and all this stuff, and the prophets are like, first, before, it is linear. That's perfect because they're not linear beings. It doesn't make any difference to them who came first or last. And he's like, well, why did you send me back? I'm like, oh, for the Sisko. So this was all a test by the prophets to kind of reaffirm Sisko's role as the emissary, because he didn't. The big ironic thing was he wasn't a big fan of it. You could see at the beginning of the episode, like a couple comes up to him to be blessed for their wedding, and he's like kind of goes through it, and he's like, yeah. You can tell he's not really too sure about it. Then in the end of the episode, after he's gone through all this, he's like very excited to bless basically a Bajoran quinceañera, I think is basically what it is.
Bajoran quinceañera, I love it. I love that.
Because this guy's daughter's turning a certain age or something, and he's like, yes, I'd love to. So this just kind of shows he has a new enthusiasm for it. But yeah, it's a great episode for Sisko to examine his role as the emissary.
Right. And what a great way to create the drama between him and the old emissary by introducing a caste system, which obviously doesn't work. I mean, even within England's and modern or medieval Europe history, that it just doesn't work. A caste system is just basically profiling in a sense. It's like, oh well, this is what you do, and this that you just shovel horse poop all day. That's it. No, that's all you do. And your son and your daughter.
Forever, with no hope of, change or advancement. And, the Federation doesn't recognize or doesn't endorse applicants for entry who have caste systems. So that's really going to, Sisko's job here on Deep Space Nine. People forget they're here to get Bajor into the Federation, right? That's something that kind of gets lost in the shuffle about Deep Space Nine. And, with this new Dajara caste system, that's really going to hurt their chances for entry into the Federation. So that's a great crux to, like, because if that wasn't there in the story, like, what would the conflict be? Like, it would just, Sisko probably would just be like, okay, I'm not the Emissary anymore. I kind of miss it now, but whatever. But that is a driving force that it escalates, right? I mean, you see somebody giving up a chair for Kira at the Replimat, and then little things like that, and then it escalates to like this. I think he's a Vedic or a Bajoran religious official. He basically pushes this other guy off the second floor of the promenade and kills him because he will not submit to the class that he's supposed to be in because of his name, because of his Dajara. And so that escalates real quick, and that's why Sisko's like, all right, I cannot stand for this anymore. And Kira and Sisko have a great scene together where she has to resign because she's supposed to be an artist, and just good stuff, good emotional stuff here.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, caste system not really good. Really good thing.
I think we can all agree.
Yeah, clearly, because you don't want to get pushed off the promenade on the second level, because clearly you can die instantly, apparently, even though we've seen several people jump off the second level and also being pushed off and survive. But
I guess he must have landed on his head or something. But hey, good to see Kaiopaka again in this episode.
Yeah, that's right. She was one of the prophets. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she says, we are of Bajor, which is an interesting thing for the prophets to say, which I don't believe is ever really answered, but that's all about in Deep Space Nine. Now they tell Sisko he is of Bajor, so that through the prophets you can see how that makes sense. But we're not going to spoil. I feel like we spoil a lot of things here from there. We're not going to spoil that stuff, but that does make sense at the end if you think the prophets are from Bajor. So we'll just leave it at that. But those plot threads are introduced here in this episode.
We won't do like a Back to the Future, like the Cubs won, in this year by this score.
That's how it's like the sci-fi future. The Cubs won the World Series, right? It's like in every it's an alternate universe, or that's how you know something's gone terribly wrong with the time stream. You have to fix it. So
like the Cubs won?
We have to go back.
Rewrite history.
Well, speaking of rewriting history, at the end of this episode, they come to the conclusion, the prophet's like, all right, we're going to send the new guy back where he came from. And, Sisko returns to Deep Space Nine. Him and Kira are talking. Now, this new guy, he was a poet. He had written poems and stuff. And Kira's like, this doesn't make any sense. This poem was never finished, and now it is. And if the timeline changed, how do I remember both? And Sisko's like, the prophets work in mysterious ways. So that's where he leaves it. And that's the thing. We should all just look at time that way. Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I guess on to investigations.
Yes, let's get investigating, Richard.
Investigating, yes. Put on my yeah.
Put on your yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Investigations. Okay, Neelix searches for a traitor aboard Voyager using his morning news program, which is called A Briefing with Neelix.
Yeah. Two things. You need to catch your title, Neelix. That doesn't really catchy. You need something like Good Day Voyager or something like that. Secondly, the graphic for his show has like the blinking record sign. That is so 90s. Like that's dated today, much less than the 24th century. Am I right?
Yep, I agree. I mean, it's not like we're gonna. Yeah, it's like looking through the actual lens of the camera. It's like, come on, dude, come on.
Now there is. I do believe there's like an Instagram filter for like you can put on a video to make it look like it's like old school VHS or something. So maybe he's just being old school with that. But anyway.
Vintage. I like it. And obviously this is where everything comes ahead. The big A plot, the bigger A plot with a capital A between Tom and Chakotay. We finally figure out what's going on, obviously, because of Neelix's poking around as a journalist, a newfound journalist.
But Tom leaves the ship here, and not being as familiar as Voyager, like I was like, whoa, did I miss something? Is this for real? Like, what's going on here? So that was like, it really kept me guessing because I didn't remember anything about this episode. I will say it's it's a fake goodbye. It's all staged. It all comes to a head where oh, this was all planned. Tom was acting this way, so he would leave, so we could figure out who the traitor was and all this stuff. But Neelix just has a very good emotional goodbye to Tom. Like his monologue on his show when Tom is leaving. I was like, you know what, that's good stuff. I actually liked that. Like, if he really was leaving, that would be a very fitting, appropriate goodbye to a main character like that.
Right, and I agree. I mean, it definitely was. It was very heartfelt. It was very deep. It's something. Obviously, they had to sell it to make it look like he was actually leaving. I mean, obviously not the show. Well, we probably didn't know that when we were watching it back then.
It's pre-internet, man. We didn't know anything.
That's true. But I mean, like it's okay. We're gonna go a little time travel here. It's like when Neelix leaves. I absolutely
Neelix leaves. Yeah, I remember that.
I love that episode. I mean, spoiler, sorry, but that episode was just wow. And this episode pretty much hits you just as hard as well. I don't know. I'd have to I had to watch it again to see how much of an impact it was. But it was that powerful that he was leaving, making that goodbye speech for him, which obviously was fake.
Yeah, but he didn't know it was fake. He really thought Tom was leaving, which is what made it work.
Right.
But as it all has revealed, Tom gets kidnapped by the Kazon, which was Voyager's plan all along, and to figure out who has been the traitor on Voyager, because we've seen Jonas, the character Jonas, talking to the Kazon and Seska and giving them intel on Voyager this whole time. You're like, come on, Voyager, what's going on? Step your game up, but Tuvok was on top of things and knew what was going on, so good for you, Tuvok. They kind of tied up Jonas's plotline quite tidily. There's like some kind of warp core breach in engineering or something. It's just him and Neelix, and they're struggling, and Neelix just kicks him over the side, and he falls into some plasma, and he gets like vaporized, I think. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, it would have been interesting for like him to actually be captured, and the Voyager crew to actually have to like confront him about, hey man, WTF, right?
like the guy, like the psychopath in the beginning, wasn't it? The guy that was killing everyone.
Yeah, the Grima Wormtongue. Yeah,
there you go.
That's him. That's Grima Wormtongue.
Okay, all right, okay.
Or Chucky, from Child's Play, but. Look, I'll say this. Another thing I like, because I've said I liked earlier Voyager. I like we have these background characters who were there. Like we have crew members who have been around for a while who are doing stuff, and like Grima Wormtongue and Jonas. Yeah, Hogan. Jonas here, Lieutenant Carey, who just who knows what happens to him. They bring him back finally, and they remember that he's not dead in season 7. And then they bring him back, and we won't say what happens to him then, because we're doing all kinds of time travel violations in this episode, aren't we, Richard?
Oh, great! We're gonna get an inquiry, that's for sure.
The point is, Temporal Investigations are gonna come talk to us, but the point is, I like that we had these continuing plot lines with minor characters, and it made Voyager feel like, oh yeah, we are on this ship out in the middle of nowhere, and it's these same 150 people or whatever it is. Because, when you're on the Enterprise and Deep Space Nine, people transfer in, they transfer out. That's not happening on Voyager. It's the same people, and I like seeing the same faces over an extended period of time. It just made a lot more authenticity to everything, in my opinion.
No, and I agree. I totally agree. I mean, especially with those little stories that we, side stories that we see, people that, you normally would never see in like you said, TNG as well as Deep Space Nine or even, the original series. I mean, definitely, characters go in and out of focus on the shows, and well, this one you can't really do that because they're all stuck together in the Delta Quadrant.
Right. So, did you agree with their decision to keep Chakotay out of the loop, Janeway and Tuvok deciding not to tell him the plan with Tom?
That's a crap move, but it worked. It worked. I think he would have sold it, but then again, not telling anyone, I don't know if they would actually buy it, because it would be scripted, and you can tell if someone's arguing with someone, you can tell if it's scripted or not. It's like, yeah, okay, it's a little bit too much. Whereas, if you don't tell someone like that, it's like, yeah, I honestly, I don't mind a good, argument between two people to see it and whatnot, but it's more fun. But I think it worked well. Definitely not tell him that they would have sold it more. Yeah.
I gotta feel bad for Chakotay though. Like he had Tuvok working for Janeway on his ship. He had Seska, who's a Cardassian agent. He's got this going. Like nobody trusts this guy. This guy's always out of the loop. You know, I gotta feel bad for him. You know, because you can tell he was a little like, really, you guys
again.
But yeah, and we see Seska in this episode. And I think she's probably one of Voyager's best villains. Wouldn't you agree? Or not? Ooh, perhaps not.
Well, okay. And to be fair, I mean, obviously later on down the road when we see her in worst case scenario. So I mean, that's my favorite Seska episode. But like, so my fiance actually watched all of Voyager, and one of the things that she said about the entire thing is like, I'm glad Seska's dead. When she did die, I mean, in the series, that is.
Oh, more spoilers, everyone. Just to let you know.
Sorry.
Temporal investigations. Here they come.
They're gonna throw us in prison, dude. I mean, obviously, it's a character. I'm not saying that I don't like the actress either, but I'm just saying, like, every time I say, I'm like, oh, I cringe. I'm like, oh, damn it, Seska.
But you're supposed to. She's the villain, you know.
Yeah, I guess I could see her being the best villain. I really don't like her as the character.
Well, I like her because I mean she had some history with the crew and she was a long-term recurring villain, and you didn't get that. I mean, obviously, as you really shouldn't, because Voyager's heading in one direction towards the Alpha Quadrant. Like, it's not going to be in the same area for a long time. It's not going to encounter the same aliens and villains and stuff like that, other than the Borg, which is its own conversation, right? Like the Borg Queen, right? There is no long-term villain on on Voyager, and she's one of the better ones. Although being with the Kazon and all, but Seska herself. I liked her as a villain.
But I like the Borg Queen. That's the thing is, I actually like the Borg Queen. I mean, it's another Borg episode. I mean, we always, they're the greatest of all enemies. I could see her being at least in the top 3 best villain, definitely.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then, one last thing about this episode, the Doctor has a great little subplot where he keeps trying to be on Neelix's show, but he keeps getting bumped. He's like, so I will not be on today, but I will be on tomorrow, correct? And he's like, but I want to talk about the Boolean digestive system.
And initially he didn't even want to be on the show. Yeah. Now all of a sudden he's like, oh, I want to be on this show. It's like, okay.
It's a great gag that goes throughout the whole show. And then at the very end where Neelix is interviewing Tom, and at the end Neelix is like, oh, an apology to the Doctor. We had to bump him from today's show, but he'll be on tomorrow. And he won't be. Well, Richard, I think we've talked long enough about these 2 episodes. Fun conversation, but
violated the temporal prime directive.
Oh man, we are in so much trouble. But we've gone Kirk level of prime directive violations.
Way past him.
So when the Department of Temporal Investigations wants to contact you, Richard, about all these timeline violations, where can they find you?
They cannot find me on Twitter at xransom, and they cannot find me on Facebook at the Babel Conference either.
Well, I will take full responsibility, Richard, and they can find me every week here on Standard Orbit, our original series show here on Trek FM. You can find me personally on Twitter at MooreOnZach. That's MooreOnZach, and I'm also the host of my own podcast, Always Alone on Smallville, where we talk about each and every episode of that young Superman TV show. We're on Twitter at Always Smallville with 1 S. Well, that's going to do it for me and Richard. I will be back tomorrow with Brandon Shea Matella talking about more episodes of Star Trek. So, see you then.